Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Music Made Me. Thank you so much for joining us once again. We truly appreciate it. Please make sure you are liking, sharing, following, subscribing to us on whatever streaming platform you are listening on. It truly does help us to come back each and every week with conversations with your favorite artists. Today we're sitting down with Kade Katz. He's the lead singer of rock band Throw the Fight and also an up-and-coming solo artist. He's had an interesting journey from Montana as a child to Seattle as a young adult, and then to Minneapolis, where he's gone from bass player to lead singer in Throw the Fight. Today, he talks about juggling band and solo work, growing up with a love for the drums, sobriety, and the impact the birth of his daughter has had on his career. So please enjoy our conversation with Kade Katz. Growing up before school, before you really got into music, what was the home life like as far as music goes? Was it a musical family? Were your parents into music?
Absolutely. Yeah. My parents I was surrounded by music, very, very young, early days. And my parents, neither one of them, I'm an only child, I'll say that, but neither parent can play an instrument, but both very creative in their own artistic way. My dad's more photography and my mom's sewing and creating, that kind of art. And then my grandfather played guitar, and that was kind of my first introduction to, getting my hands on an actual instrument. But yeah, early on it was listening to the classic rock, and it's noted in my baby book at a very young, first few months that I had a taking for a love for music right away. And I kind of get that now, seeing my daughter just latch on to certain artists and music. And so it's cool. But yeah, from the jump was into music, I could say.
Right. And you talk about your grandfather.
Yeah.
It was age 7 when you first picked up his guitar, was it?
Yeah. um, yeah, I mean, 7, and it could have been younger, but I could kind of pick it up and hold it and hold my own a little bit. And yeah, so my grandfather, we spent a lot of time together. So learning guitar, and I was very into drumming and drums. So I think I got my first drum set, it's like maybe 5.
Oh, okay.
And I was just always banging on it, everything, trikes, you name it. My parents were like, I don't know why we buy you toys, how can I create some sort of percussion out of this? But yeah, it was my parents being like, drumming is great and all, but you can't write songs. And they're also saying, this is annoying as hell to hear you practice. So that kind of just pushed me, and I started taking guitar lessons maybe like 9 or 10, and pretty in-depth lessons at first, a lot of finger picking. And and then, but I had a phenomenal teacher. He just he could tell I had a love, a drive, a passion for it. And he's like, hey, just start bringing in some songs that you want to learn, and artists. So I picked that stuff up pretty quick. And then probably like 12, he's like, if this is what you want to do, or pursue or whatever, you should learn to write songs. And I mean, you couldn't get me home fast enough just to write songs. And so that's kind of where it all went. And then just started forming bands shortly after that, in middle school. So
at 12, you kind of knew that's what you wanted to do. Was it before that you had kind of latched onto music as, this is what I want to do as a career?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I could say probably 5, 6 years old. I was like, I was going into kindergarten saying I'm going to be a rock star. So, and all the way through K through 12.
Right.
And the older I got, let me just say that the teachers weren't very inclined to want to hear that all the time, especially in high school. You're like, I don't need this. I'm gonna be a rock star.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was just I just loved everything about music, and it was my thing. You know, I played sports and was really into basketball. I mean, between music and basketball, those are like my two loves. And you know, I think probably more like 15, 16 years old, I was in a band and was kind of just more drawn to music versus basketball. And I just, you know, I was like, you know, it comes to a point where I'm not going to be in the NBA.
Yeah.
And you know, music's always going to be there, and that was something that was always instilled in me. It's no matter what level, whatever you're doing, you're always going to have music. And it was just like, here we go.
And now when you were 12, when you first started playing,
Mm-hmm.
you were in your first bands, and I heard you talk
Yeah.
about somewhere that you were in a band at like 12 years old and the other
Mhm.
people in it were like 17, 18 in that range.
Yeah, yeah, 17, 18, 19. And you know, that's intimidating. You know, you go
I
into
bet.
some band practice and you're 13 years old and guitars are taller than you, and they're like, okay, what are you doing here? And you just kind of start shredding. And but those experiences were really cool because I'm tapping into, you know, what teenagers are listening to versus a 12, 13-year-old kid. And so right there, you know, I'm getting introduced to, it was Tool, some Black Sabbath, Pantera. And you know, I'd been like putzing around with Nirvana and you know, the classic rock jams and stuff like that, some Alice in Chains. But then, you know, you go to a band practice with these guys and they're ripping on some Pantera, and you're like, wait, what? And you know, they're telling you to turn up the gain, and you didn't even know that was on your amp. You're just like, oh, okay. And yeah, but and then right then it was like, all right, I want to start figuring out how to, I don't know, take my guitar lessons as far as uh, blues and uh, you know, simple chords, and then transitioning into almost like heavy riffage type stuff. So it was very, very inspiring for sure.
And there was a band called Spork,
Yeah.
and you would walk around school handing out cassette tapes of your music.
Yeah, which is nuts. You know, you're going at you know, eighth grade into high school, and you're walking around with cassette tapes that are just be written Spork. And I think we had the R or K or something was backwards because we were, you know, we just tapped into Corn, and you're just like, what
Ah,
is this? And then you just want to be that. And yeah, I mean, it's just like throwing mixtapes out your trunk. But we were before we even were driving, so it's, you know, out of our backpacks. So, and you know, and they were all originals at that time, and we were just, you know, here's a song, here, you know, cassette with like 3 or 4 songs or whatever that we recorded on a computer with probably like a, a one mic or something. I don't even remember.
right. And so from basically 12 years onward through middle school, high school, were you
Yeah.
constantly in a band?
Yeah, for the most part, I was, which is crazy to think. Yeah, I was, you know, I had two great best friends, John, who played drums, and Jake, who played bass. And I mean, we were like, you know, we were solid all the way through and just constantly playing music and inspiring each other and motivating each other to play music. And both of those guys had, their fathers were local musicians, and it was their side gig. And you know, we all just kind of looked up to that too, and knew it was possible, whatever stage it's at, you know. And they're getting together every week and making money, and you know, we're just riding along with it. I mean, there was a couple of shows we actually opened for their dad's bands, and we'd get up and have a couple songs, and then it's like, all right, beat it, kids. But, and that was awesome. And then, it was kind of a moment in Montana, like 18, 19, when I was graduating, that, hey, Livingston isn't gonna work for pursuing this career, this path, or whatever it might be, this dream. And I was like, I had friends in Washington State, and so I was like, all right, I could move out there and at least have a place to stay and a little network in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm. And what
So
was that move like? Because, like you say, you're going from Livingston, where I imagine the music scene isn't all that hot, and you're going to Washington when, at the time, that was a huge scene, right? Well, it still is, but that was sort of, leading after Nirvana and that whole scene building up, right?
yeah, absolutely. It was, it had changed a little bit since then, but it it still had a scene, and there was more bands than Montana, and you could just network a little bit better. And the thing is too, though, is there was more people, so you're also trying to figure out and navigate who you want in your band. And you start realizing there's a lot of flakes and a lot of people that like the idea. You find that there's the idea of being in a band or whatever, and finding that everyone kind of has different intentions than I may have had. But I did form a band relatively quickly, and just started grinding and practicing. And early on, I don't know how I did it, but got the guts to go to some open mics by myself, and do that sort of thing. And quickly after that, the venues or places I was playing were like, man, do you have a band? Can you come back and play more? And to me, I'm like, holy, I must be doing something right. And quickly then just started building gigs based off those little open mic performances I did.
Right. And those acoustic performances, what did those mean for your progression as a lead singer? Because when you're doing it solo, you have to hold the room, right? It's only you. So is that
Yeah,
pretty big in your evolution and learning how to be a front man?
dude. Yeah, 100%. It teaches you a lot as far as just so many things. I mean, like you said, you're holding the audience, you're grabbing the audience, you have to perform, you have to sound good. You could sit in your room and practice, but as soon as you walk in and there's people there, it changes. And just having your skill dialed in, and you quickly learn too what fans or people grab a hold towards, or afterwards like, oh, I really like this song or that, and you're like, okay, what about that song stuck? And then you start really taking that back and figuring out your next set or the next songs you're writing at the time. And but I mean, you're vulnerable, man. It's you and a guitar. And luckily, you only have to play a couple songs, but there's a negative to that too, because you're like, after 2 or 3 songs, you're kind of just getting warmed up, and they're like, all right, let's do 4 or 5. And they're like, okay, next. And you're like, all right.
Yeah. And so did you spend what, 3 years in the Seattle area?
Yeah, roughly probably about 3 years. It was pretty quick stint. And I think I probably would have stayed longer, but over the 3 years, I finally formed a band, and we were going in a good direction. And I just didn't want to start over again, and find new people. And they were two of my best friends. So similar to Throw the Fight, they're my best friends. And so there's just something that's really great about that, and a blessing, really. And so the drummer at the time, he was originally from Minneapolis, and he was like, hey, what, I'm moving back home, let's go there. So we reached out to some local bands via MySpace just to say, what's the scene like there? What's it all about, right? And it was just positive. positive things. And um, so for us, it was a no-brainer. Like, I think I was 23 or something. So you're not like, you don't have anything holding you back. um,
That's kind of
and,
crazy when you think about it. You say you were 23. Like it
yeah,
feels like you've already lived a full life at that point with all the bands you've been in and all the stuff you
yeah,
had done. Like that's pretty
yeah.
crazy.
It is pretty crazy. And yeah, we were called I Forgot. That was our band in Seattle. Instead of being I Forgot, when we moved to Minneapolis, we changed our name to Last Ditch Effort. Our joke was just like, well, we moved to Minneapolis and it didn't work in Seattle, or it kind of did, but uh, this is a last ditch effort. You know,
Right.
if this doesn't work, whatever, which is kind of funny to say looking at it now too. You're like, I'm still going.
Yeah, exactly. And so when did you officially join Throw the Fight as a full-time member? Because I know you kind of went back and forth with
Yeah.
them, right? On I don't want to play bass, but they want you to play bass, but you don't want to play bass. So when
Yeah.
was it that you officially joined?
I think it was 2015. And Ryan, we were just talking one day and he's like, yeah, dude, I'm thinking of doing some more stuff with Throw the Fight. Would you want to, you know, jump in and start writing songs and all this? I'm like, well, hell yeah, I've got a ton of songs right now. And at that time I was just doing solo stuff. It was just like me, solo acoustic. I was playing shows and opening up for friends' bands and stuff like that. So I'm like, yeah,
Okay.
I'm all for it. And yeah, you got to play bass. But the big thing was being in a band with your best friends, and then also just hey, you're gonna be able to write songs and track whatever you want, and it's just all about doing it and still thriving and having pursuing your dream. So it was like, all right, let's do it. And quickly we worked on all the stuff for transmissions, and quickly booked the recording on that, and it's just been pretty
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, and let's skip ahead now to
Yeah.
2019.
Hmm.
And you've been playing with the band for a few years, and then all of
Yeah.
a sudden their singer leaves for another band,
Yep.
and you guys decide that you're going to step into that role. For
Right.
you, what was that decision like in looking at it? Like, it's easy to change a guitarist, a drummer, and no one will notice, but people are going to notice the change in a front man. So what was your thinking in that, in taking over that role?
Yeah, and my first thing was, I was like, the guys had brought it up to me. They're like, hey, that's easy. You'll just start singing. And for me, being a fan of the band for so many years, being in the band, I'm like, yeah, Throw the Fight. But it was a compliment. So I was like, all right, let's do it. And like you said, it's not just like changing a different member. You're now the voice of the band, and having the longevity that it has, that there's some shoes to not really fill, but you're having to keep the old listeners and then also get new listeners. There's going to be a change. But I was excited because I was actually spending that a whole year working on solo stuff, and I had anticipation of releasing a bunch of solo stuff, and it kind of took us by surprise on some of the Throw the Fight stuff. But I was like, oh man, I have to quickly like transition into headspace of singing like this or whatever. But I was all for it because I my main focus for that year was just to become a better singer for myself. And then kind of to round out the end of that year was like, hey, you have this opportunity to be a lead singer. I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm for that.
And going in to Settle Your Sins, you guys had already recorded that album, and you went in and re-recorded it because you obviously weren't the singer on it the first time, so you went in to re-record it. Did you have any pressure on yourself in that regard, in kind of focusing on trying to do it like it had been done, or were you going in with the mindset of I am who I am and I'm going to make it my own?
Chris he's like my little therapist, Chris, our guitarist, but he just walked me through it, and he's just like, dude, you got to do what, show your skills and your highlights and what you're good at, and don't think that people need to hear sing, scream, aggressiveness, or whatever it might be, and don't try to do what was the record. This is your record. How do you want to do it? And it just clicked right there that I went into the studio, and man, there was a couple days I was banging out 2 at a time, and then I spent 10 days just singing everything. And at that time, previous singer, we A-B'd a lot, and then I harmonized a lot, where this was me. Like, I had to do all my harmonies, all the background stuff. Like, Ryan did a couple screams,
Right.
but so that was a lot too. It was taxing, and it was a lot to do in 10 days. And even Grant, our producer, he's like, wait, so how long are you here? And like 10 days. He's like, we got a lot of work to do. I'm like, yeah. And at that time, I mean, luckily I had been singing so much that whole year that I knew my voice was strong enough and wasn't going to fatigue and do that. But still 10 days of 6-8 hour days in a studio singing it's a little different.
Yeah. And making that change to frontman, did that change how you approached the solo stuff? Because you say that started sort of at the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
And you take over frontman. Did you kind of second guess yourself on the solo stuff and thinking, well, I'm the front man here now, so do I have time? Do I want to do the solo stuff? Or were you focused on getting that solo stuff out and starting up that part of your career as well?
Yeah, I definitely wanted to continue the solo stuff. Regardless of what was going to happen with Throw the Fight, I committed to myself that, in like 2018, that I was going to do my solo stuff again, and, get out of my head of like, oh, I have all these songs, but are they good enough? All that garbage.
Right.
And it was just like, I just started going into the studio and working on these songs. And as they kept coming, I started just kind of figuring out little pieces and sound and things that I gravitated towards. And I had, quite a few songs at that time. And I was like, I just need to start putting these out. And then, the whole Throw the Fight thing happened. I'm like, well, that's on the back burner. But I had enough songs too, where I wasn't like super stressed, where I'm like, oh, this is gonna, take up my time. I'm not gonna be able to do the solo stuff as much as I want. So it was kind of nice too. And like I said, it was nice to almost get in a different headspace and start creating a different way and put myself in a different element.
Yeah, it's got to be nice to have that, to kind of step away and almost clear your head when you're working on the solo stuff, I imagine.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with my solo stuff was I have so many songs. I'm constantly writing. I'm a creative person, and I have the capability to do most of it all on my own, except for the recording aspect. Like, thank God to Jeremy Turek, because he's a godsend for recording all my stuff.
Right.
And he's done quite a few of the Throw the Fight stuff as well. But, it's just, and I know it's not the same as Throw the Fight. So that's the nice thing, where it's like, oh, here's Kade's solo project, and it sounds just like Throw the Fight. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of difference. I mean, obviously there's going to be similarities because it's my voice, but I sing in different ways than I would just in Throw the Fight. So to me, it's like two different identities, right?
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about some personal stuff and how it's affected your music. I saw a post from last October that you were a year sober. How has that affected your music, especially moving into the solo stuff and moving in as a front man? How has that changed things for you?
It's been amazing. Uh, you know, I took a kind of a break previous to that post for about 4 or 5 months. And then funny enough, when we went to go record, um, I think it was like a Thursday or Friday, like I'm just wrapping up recording. I got a couple of days, and we were working on which now is the song Going Numb that comes out next Friday.
Oh, okay.
So Chris flew out there and he's like, dude, I got this riff. And right away, I just started singing the words that are there, like instantly. And so we're like, just riding this high, right? We're like, man, we got this new song. It's a banger. And I'm almost done recording. It's sounding sick. So we went out and had some drinks, and then kind of the same thing the next night where we're like, yeah, riding this high again, you living the life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy, like I feel like garbage, and I can't do this. And shortly after that, I just came home and kind of just was like, you know what? I know what this is like and how many years of this. Let's not do that. And I have responsibility of, and the opportunity of being a front man, and you have a lot of the things that you've wanted and work towards. So let's not it up and and just drink and party and do that, because to be honest, it's just like I'm not a moderation dude.
Right.
I love everything and all masses, so it's just like it's not like I'm out of control by any means, but it's just I didn't want to jeopardize anything, and I knew that what that was like. And so it's been awesome. I've been more motivated. I've been clear-headed, more true to myself, and like really, it's crazy what comes out lyric-wise or music-wise. My work ethic is just, just more in tune and full throttle, and so that's what's been nice. And over a year into it, and a new dad, and I'm cool with never doing it again. And my dad quit drinking shortly after I was born. And
Oh, nice.
so that he's inspired, it was something I've always wanted to do. And but you got your homies, and you're kind of the lifestyle of just having a good time. And but now it's just, and my girlfriend, she's like about 3.5 or 4 years sober. She's just a couple months ago. And it's just awesome. I mean, I feel better every day. There was a few months there where I'd wake up on a Saturday. I'm like, man, I don't really feel that bad today. And she'd be like, why would you feel bad? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't drink. Why would I? But it'd been so many years of just feeling like garbage that you're like, this is it.
I get it. Exactly. Yep.
So I think it's been great. And luckily I have over a year, and especially after 2020 of pandemic and change of everything. I mean, I couldn't imagine what I may have consumed just in that time with mental, just mentally, and depression and anxiety and all that stuff. Like I mean, not to say I don't have that stuff, but I feel I have, at least I don't have those other chemicals interfering with it.
Right.
To put it lightly.
Yeah. And you talked about the birth of your daughter.
Yeah.
How has that affected things in your writing and in your music? I mean, now you're a dad, it's got to take up more time. So now you have all this stuff kind of pulling your attention. So what has it meant for you?
It's been awesome. It's I utilize my time more. I know that I have, Monday night's kind of my night where I go work on solo stuff in my Minneapolis studio. And then there's a couple of days out of the week where I have blocked off in our calendar where, it's Kade writing time at home. My girlfriend's very creative as well. She paints, writes poems. And so we're both very respect each other's outlet. And also, I mean, she's putting out poetry books and art and all that stuff, and that's what makes her her, and same with me. So we both respect that and block off those times for us to achieve those things and do those things. But yeah, I mean, I wrote a song just recently about my daughter that'll come out probably this summer. I just got the first mix of it a couple of weeks ago. It's awesome. I'm like so proud of it. And I remember writing it with her, when she's just like couple days old. And but yeah, I think it's just me utilizing my time more productive, and knowing that I have these smaller windows of Cade just being able to do whatever the hell he wants, to these are the hours you get, and just putting in the time. And I've changed my routine where I'm up earlier and doing all the behind the scenes stuff for my solo stuff. And just it's actually been more motivating, and you just more drive, really.
Yeah, and that's great. And with all that stuff you have going on, thank you so much for taking some time to
Oh,
sit
no
down with
problem,
us.
man. I was looking forward to it for sure. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
it's great learning about you guys. And yeah, talking to Ryan was great, and learning your story and all the stuff you've gone through. And it's funny because people might see you and throw the fight, but that's only such a small chunk of who you are as a musician. You've had all this other stuff surrounding it. That's great to learn.
Right. Well, like you said at the beginning of it, it's the journey. And I don't think I realized that until, a few years ago, of uh, things I've done and worked and accomplished, and all that, to just continue this. Like, there's so many people that haven't pursued their dream or continued to pursue their dream on whatever level it might be, and to just keep doing it is the big thing. And just finding like little wins. Before you asked about pressure and everything, I think back in your early 20s, or even late 30s or early 30s, you have so much pressure that you put on yourself. Or and people always ask you, oh, you're in a band, and oh, when are you going to make it, and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And that gets to you because you're like, man, we're on the radio, or you play these certain shows and all this stuff. But then you just kind of have to look back and be like, you at least you did that. Like, you
Yeah,
had the opportunity
exactly.
to do that. Like, yeah, we're not baller rock stars, and that's our full-time gig, but we did have those wins and those successes, and that attributes to a lot. And it's
Yeah.
a lot of hard work and dedication, where you just got to put in the time. A lot
Yeah,
of time.
exactly. I'm learning that right now. Like you say, getting up early and staying up late. And yeah, you just have to do it, right? If you love it and you want to do it, then you just have to put in the time and you have to do it. You can't say, oh, it's too much work, I want
Yeah.
to sit down and watch TV tonight, or oh, I want to sleep in tomorrow. You just
Right.
have to get your mindset right and do it if you love it.
Right. Absolutely. And for me, it's my therapy. Like, no matter what, I need to sit down at some point during the day, multiple times throughout the week, to play music, whether I'm working on a song or just playing. I need that. So
Right.
without that, like, I'm miserable. And luckily I've never had to do that. But
Yeah.
I definitely know the moments when you're kind of getting irritable, or you have that itch where you're just like, what is going on? Like, you got anxiety, or you're down, or whatever, and you're like, dude, you haven't like played music today or the next day. Like, you know get that going. And it's just like working out. I have the same discipline for working out routine. Of course, now it's not working out for an hour and a half. It's 20-30 minutes, but
Hmm.
you're kicking your ass those 20-30 minutes, where before, let's be honest, I'm probably like, at the gym, just like, oh yeah, on your phone and whatever it might be, where now it's like, go, go, go.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, man.
And we'll look forward to new Throw the Fight and new Kade Katz
lot of new. So next Friday we've got Going Numb from Throw the Fight. And then March, April, May, I have singles coming out, one each month.
Awesome.
Probably a single a month till the end of the year, to be honest, for my solo stuff. And then, yeah, we're working on a bunch of Throw the Fight stuff. And I think we're going to kind of do less is more type thing. And, and those are going to be rippers. So looking forward to that. And that's even something exciting too, where I'm going to try to step out of the box of what I normally do. Hopefully it works, but looking forward to that too.
Awesome. That's great. Well, we'll look forward to it.
Cool.
And yeah, I'll let you get back to your real life now.
Right. Adulting.
Yeah, exactly. As difficult as that is sometimes, but
yeah. All right, brother. I appreciate it.
Yes. Thank you so much. And we'll talk to you again.
All right. Later.
Thank you guys so much once again for listening, and thank you to Kade for stopping by and opening up to tell us about his journey through music. Please be sure you are liking, sharing, following, subscribing to us on whatever streaming platform you are listening on, and please be sure to join us next time when we have more conversations with your favorite musicians. Thanks, and we'll see you next time on The Music Made Me.